refocus what they do on the more sophisticated higher-end talent or on recruiting actually very unskilled talent, which often isn't recruited anyways. It's just found, or it finds its own job. And I think there'll be a big growth in the use of temporary and consultant and other contingent forms of labor. So agencies that focus on recruiting those people will see a fairly positive future.
Do you tell me this? I don't know. Have you heard of? I was reading the other day about a new site called Jobber Files, and it's set up by college grads. It's based in Boston, and it's a site where people can bid on how much money, or more importantly, how little they are willing to be paid for their work. So it's all public. Are you seeing any funny trends, any desperation in recruitment such as that in the US market that we might see soon?
Yeah, I think you might. I think you'll find that bartering for jobs, and you can look at it two ways. You can look at it in the desperation economy, or you can look at it as simply the market economy. And like so many things are traded for their value, and if you are willing to pay, more for something than I am, then more power to you. But eventually the market will determine what those skills are worth. And we're seeing this in a lot of sites here in America, like Elance, which is another site here where people can put themselves up for work. This kind of work is typically work that you can do virtually. So someone in New Zealand could bid on work in the United States. And we're finding lots of people from India and other countries are doing that. So if I want my website done, I can put it on Elance, I can list the specifications, and then people from all over the world can bid on that job. So I think you're going to find, and then I can choose whoever I want to do it based on their, my perception of their skills and ability and their price. I think you're going to find a lot of that increasing tremendously, and any work that can be done virtually is now global. And, if there's work in New Zealand that I could do from here, I could theoretically at least bid for that kind of work if I knew about it, and if the employer was willing to use me in that way, and if the legal system allowed me to do that. And there are some issues, of course, that will crop up here. Our legal systems all over the world are always way behind the reality of the job market. So we're already lagging in how we look at the law. Okay, thank you for that. So what I'd like to ask you now is what are some old recruiting tools that are dead because of this new environment we're in? Now, it's hard to say they're dead, but they're certainly in a recession, if I can use that word, or they're going to become far less important. I think the traditional resume is finally fading away. I've been saying this for a decade, so I'm probably wrong here, but it seems to have an incredible amount of resiliency. But I think the CV or the traditional resume that you and I probably spent many hours crafting when we were younger is something that's being replaced by your profile in your social network, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook. That profile is increasingly becoming how you're going to be known to the world. And the advantage of that is that it's a living, not dead document. It's generally up to date, and it contains more information about you than a CV does. It's certainly got a more complete view of your life in it, which raises privacy issues, which we can talk about that if you want to later. But I think those are moot points for the most part. So I think that's in danger. I think the traditional applicant tracking tool that is simply a device for storing resumes or CVs and retrieving them is obviously also in jeopardy. Most of them have begun to transform themselves into more tools for social networking and that can use these profiles, but that's going to be an essential requirement. And I think you're going to find that most recruiting is going to focus around social networks of some type and is going to become a much more collective activity where recruiters will create their own communities, or agencies can have communities that they tap into and build credibility with. and then help those people find places to work and things to do. But it's a very fluid and changing environment, and sort of the static world of filling out a CV, mailing it or emailing it. Email is also dead as a tool for recruiting. I think you're going to find it's Twitter, it's instant messaging, it's Skype, it's other tools that are going to replace email. And as many young people tell me today, email is only used by my grandfather or my father. But I certainly never use it or rarely use it. And it's certainly not the preferred media for a college student today. Many universities here in America are no longer giving out email addresses to students because students have no need for them, don't use them. So lots of things in that space. It's moving so quickly that you have to move into this mobile recruiting space, social recruiting, and mobile. You've got to have ways to reach people on their phone, ways to reach them through instant messaging and Twitter and other kinds of emerging kinds of advertising that will show up on the telephone.
Okay, so let's talk some specific tools. Reading one of your tweeters or twits, as you say, Malcolm Gladwell's view of social network has been likened to a nun's view of the Kama Sutra, and that was by Maria Popova on Design Observer blog. Where do you think social networks? If for recruiters and talent managers here in New Zealand, what would your advice be on how to use social networks as specific tools?
Well, I think they have to make the social network the hub of what they're doing. And to me, that becomes the core of your recruiting efforts. It's where you use that to reach out to candidates, to attract them to either your agency or to your company. It's where you basically communicate with and, in a way, screen candidates for their fit and suitability for a job. And you do this through a variety of tools. It could be formal assessments that are part of your social network, but more likely it's going to be informal assessment of people, just like you might do in an interview. It's going to be looking at their social profile. It's going to be asking their friends about them. It's going to be reaching out to that referral network around them. And there's already a company here in the U.S. called Checkster, and what Checkster does is send out emails to people that you have indicated that you know and ask these people if they would just answer anonymously a few questions about you. And these are multiple choice questions that help to determine your fit for a job or whether you really have a skill or not. And they might say, have you ever actually seen Mike host a radio show before? How many times have you seen him do that? And you might have told me you've done it 100 times, but I have no way to really verify that. But I can ask your network of friends or listeners, and they tell me, oh, yeah, I listen to him every day or whatever, and I get verification of those skills. So it's a much more immediate sort of process of getting information about people, and it's more authentic, and it's probably much more accurate than what you're going to get from a CV or from traditional screening tools. I think, so to me, that social network is the core, and that's what you have to really spend time to develop, and it's what you really have to nurture and find people that can communicate using those tools and actually build relationships with people online. I think that relationship piece is a challenge. If I could just interject this, that many of us think you can't have a relationship virtually, and I think that if you're probably over 40 or 45, that's pretty much your belief. Whether you would say that or not, I think inside you're believing, I don't think you can really have a relationship with somebody that you had never met. And yet I can tell you right now that people in their 20s and 30s are having relationships that are very deep and very significant with people who they have never met and may never meet because of the nature of the Internet and the virtual world, the social networks. So I think you're going to see that having relationships with people, recruiting people that you have never met, hiring and having people work for you that you've never met, while it's not that common today, although it does happen, it's going to become much, much more common in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so just moving to looking backwards for a second, what are some of the past big trends that haven't worked?
That's a good question. That's a really thoughtful one. I'm going to have to ponder that for a moment here. The things that we thought would work, that's a really good one. I can't think of anything. Have you got any example you've got in mind?
I'll give you time to ponder that. So when you're talking about social networks and things like that and these great tools and people having very intimate relationships and they don't even know each other online, do you think the recruitment world and the talent and people searching for talent are exploiting them? And what companies can you tell us about that you see are really using these cleverly, these methods?
Well, I think right there in New Zealand you've got a couple. You have Deloitte that's doing a fabulous job, and I think you've probably got a few other organizations as well. Actually, there's been quite a lot of innovative thinking in the social networking space out of New Zealand and Australia. Maybe partly because you're down under, so to speak, and have a need to, maybe connect outside virtually more than other people in more populated parts of the world do. But, I think that there are many examples, especially from organizations that are recruiting young people. And, of course, that's obviously where it's going to start because young people are already aware and comfortable with using those kind of tools. So at the college recruiting level, it's going to be an increasingly used tool. And I think as you reach higher age groups, less so. And I think it's a lesson of social media is that one size doesn't fit all. And you probably do have to evolve over time. We'll evolve to everyone or virtually everyone being in social media. But for right now, if you're recruiting a baby boomer, you're probably going to find yourself using more traditional methods, and that's probably appropriate. And as you move down the age group, you need to begin to focus more on the social media and the mobile technologies if you're going to attract people. So the companies that I think are doing this well around the world are some of the biggest ones like IBM, KPMG, and Deloitte have done extremely good jobs of that. I think you also find some of this happening in India around Tata, and some other companies are doing a fabulous job with figuring out how to really leverage things in the virtual world for recruiting and use that to their benefit. And also to use people virtually in terms of getting work done. So we're in a big transitional time in the world about how we work. And we've been grown up. Most of us that are boomers for sure have grown up in a world of physical place, going to the office, working 8 to 5, and that's increasingly foreign to young people who say, why do I have to go to an office? Why can't I work from wherever I am? And why 8 to 5? I may work 8 to midnight today, and I may not work at all tomorrow. Why don't you judge me on what I do, not how much time I've put in, and so forth. So big sea change is underway in how we think about work, and our mental picture of work is changing. And it's probably hasn't happened in 100 years.
Okay, so let's move on to that. Let's talk the good gritty stuff. With the sea change you're talking about, which is fascinating to us, I believe you're a man who really believes in a great recruitment strategy, that it matters. Would I be correct?
It matters tremendously, absolutely.
Can you